this week's episode of Food Bites. The homeless lunch program was one of the few really great things that came out of the recent pandemic. It was a partnership between the London Food Bank and RBC Place, kind of an unusual thing. And it began right at the very beginning of the pandemic, and it goes on to this very day. In the course of that time, it's delivered over 100,000 lunches, real quality lunches, to different people that are homeless around the city. It's a remarkable story that's 4 years old and still going. Other partners came in later on. 519 Pursuit now delivers those lunches to homeless encampments and where people are. And while U Place also helps to have homeless youth prepare homeless lunches for other homeless youth during the course of these last couple of years as well. It's been a really great partnership, collaboration. Now, it's something you might not expect, but I mean, RBC Place was in a hard time at the beginning of the pandemic. There were no conventions, there were no special events, so it was a hard time for them. It was a hard time for social agencies, especially the homeless agencies, who were having to close down or limit their operations and who just didn't have the ability to carry out their normal operations. It was on a Saturday morning, right at the beginning of the pandemic, that I got a call from Lori Silva, the CEO from RBC Place, who you'll meet in this program. She said, look, we can do amazing things at the RBC Place. We have an industrial kitchen. We've got top-notch chefs. What can we do to help you as a food bank as you move out to help the homeless populations? It was a gift. It was a tremendous gift. And we were able then to partner up. And then all sorts of different citizens came involved. The food was made up by the chefs, who you will also meet during this program. They're really tremendous folks. But they and their staff had put together these lunches. And then citizens came in the underground parking lot area of RBC Place and picked up this food and delivered to agencies and to individuals. It included a bicycle organization, it included average citizens, it included businesses. It was really amazing. And I really thought you should get to meet these folks who not only made that possible, but are still making it possible, besides the fact business is back as usual. You'll initially see me with the chefs in the ballroom of RBC Place, this vast area that's about ready to be renovated, so it was all empty. So we had a chance to meet in there and talk all about the homeless lunches and what had happened and where RBC Place is going in the future. As I said, you'll also get to meet Lori Silva in the foyer of the RBC Place and hear how she put it together in her own head with the help of some other Londoners to approach us and make the whole thing happen. It's a great thing. It's a really great thing. And I've been out seeing, I'm usually in there every week at RBC Place, but I've been out seeing places where these lunches are delivered. And these are top quality lunches delivered by top quality chefs. So it's important. It's important for everybody in the community to see what RBC Place is, what it was during the pandemic, and what it continues to do in ways that might really surprise you. Enjoy it.
Room. I'll show you around. People, this room we're going to go into, kitchen does not operate.
All right, show us. All right.
So everything's clean and sanitized before it comes out of this room. Runs down the conveyor through the hot water sanitized dishwasher.
Yeah.
Comes out at 180 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
So it's nice and chemically free sanitation.
That's good.
And then it's just stacked up clean at the other end, and that's ready for the next day event. Like I said, this is the heart and soul of any kitchen, not just ours. But I started in the dish room when I was 15 years old, so I have a couple years experience in here. It's not an easy job, but it's an important job. We'll go right to the bulk cooking aisle. Depending on the size of the event, we'll determine what equipment we're using, if it's a big oven or a small oven, if it's a big kettle or a small kettle.
Those are huge.
So we're using, if a guest one day wants to order soup for the ballroom, 2,000 cups of soup out of this kettle.
My goodness.
So everything is big here. Lots of walk-in ovens, rational ovens, so
Yeah.
state-of-the-art kitchen. Everything's on wheels, so everything gets loaded up these carts, rolled into the fridge, and then from the fridge right into the oven.
And then this is also where you put together the homeless lunches.
Right? Well, here's Christina right now. She's picking up the lunch that we got for 70 people downstairs. So here goes the cold food. It was all prepared in the morning or the day before, and now we're ready to roll.
That's awesome.
So like I said, everything on wheels. Now it's anywhere in the building. There's where it goes.
That's good. And then you prepare the homeless lunches here, and then you take them downstairs, and then they come down to the loading bay and pick them up. Right?
Yep, I'll come in the fridge. I'll get it. So that's part of the 519 boxes. They're just chip boxes, but inside those boxes are the little bags for the homeless. So they just have to pick up whatever boxes they need for the day. Everything is in there. And then we serve the hot meal with it.
Amazing.
And they go in thermal bags and taken downstairs to the loading dock, and then it's picked up at 11 o'clock.
At 11 o'clock, and then taken out to the various homeless encampments.
Very smooth, very efficient operation.
You've done an amazing job, Dave. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
So here I am with Chris, and Chris, we've been talking about the original days of the homeless lunch thing in the middle of the pandemic. It was you and David Van Elk that were helping with all of that, and we were talking about that none of us really had a clue of what to do, right? You folks knew how to put together lunches, which is true. We knew how to distribute food, but we'd never been in a pandemic before. So the linking of the food bank and RBC Place worked out like magic.
It sure did, yeah.
And we all became great friends. I mean, I was in here most of those days, but you guys delivered thousands and thousands and thousands of lunches during that time to all these different groups. Do you have one abiding memory from it?
I was just glad we were able to help at such a trying time.
Yeah.
You know, so much confusion at the time and so many different things going on. And, you know, it's just fantastic that we were able to link up with you guys and, you know, actually make a difference where it matters, you know.
Yeah. And it still continues to this day. But, you know, my abiding memories of all of that is just the friendships that we established during that time that have continued even to the present day. So, and here you are still working, still doing great stuff. So we appreciate very much what you've done, Chris.
We appreciate everything you do for London.
All right, thanks. All right, so here we are at RBC Place, and I'm here with Kent Phillips, who's the sous chef here at RBC Place, and then the head chef, the big guy, is David Van Eldik. So you guys are basically responsible for the homeless lunch program that's been running out here since the start of the pandemic. And Dave, you were here at that point when we first got it started. And it was we didn't know what we were doing, did we? Like it was a pandemic, nobody really knew. But then we started getting our heads around it and what needed to be done. And there were all of these groups that were wanting food, and they also had particular things they wanted, right? What was that like for you?
Yeah, well, you came to see us, and it all happened very quickly. With a week's planning, with the use of the RBC kitchen and the talented chefs we have here, we threw it together very quickly. And I think it took us less than a week, and we were up and running and providing lots of meals. And just before you got here, we kind of took a quick calculation of how many meals we've served since the beginning. And May is our 4-year anniversary with you.
Yeah.
So we're just over 112,000 meals since we began this program back in 2020.
That's amazing. And But in those early days, you would get orders, right? And people would say, well, I'm a vegetarian, or I don't want this. And you guys had to try to accommodate that, because it was actually for groups, right? There were a number of different groups out there that, because of the pandemic, were shut down and couldn't do it, but they were still trying to feed their clients. But those dietary necessities were kind of passed on to you, and you guys had to prepare the same kind of meal, but different ways.
Yeah, we're used to those kind of requests. So for us, it was really a non-issue. We just continued to do what we always done and provide gluten-free meals or vegetarian meals or whatever they required. That wasn't an issue for us.
Yeah.
We've done it all for many, many years now.
You guys are so great at including me. The food bank got involved because the RBC Place contacted me, wondered if there's a way they could help. So we developed this homeless lunch thing. But then we came in and we talked about it and we started to work it. But you guys kept including me every day, which I really appreciated. But at the same time, the food bank was paying for all of these meals. And that's what made it possible for you guys to do that. But you folks, it was just two of you then as chefs and not much help, right? And you would come early in the morning and you would prepare these lunches. But I remember people weren't prepared for it. I mean, sometimes it was turkey, sometimes give me some of the example of some of the lunches you did back then. What was in them?
So we started off with basically a cold lunch because we were just developing these menu plans, and we started off with a cold lunch. So it was a turkey sandwich with a juice box, a bag of chips, a cookie, maybe like a chocolate pudding or something. And so it was like a lunch bag, complete lunch bags, and the 519 group would pick those up and distribute them to the most needy. And then from there it evolved into a hot meal. So for a couple years now, we've been doing the same items at cold, like the juice box and the chips and the cookie, along with a hot meal. And the hot meals can be like a hot hamburger, hot turkey dinner. We've done ribs many times. We've done chicken, curry chickens, all kinds of different stuff. So now that we're back in our regular business, we have lots more food offerings available to us to utilize for the 519 program.
Yeah. How did you feel in that first month? Let's say I came in, we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, how it was going to be distributed, what was going to happen. I felt in over my head. I didn't know how we were going to do it because we'd never worked at that scale before. But having an industrial kitchen like that you guys had was the thing that made all the difference, because there was so many groups and hundreds of meals that you were preparing each day. But how did you feel about that? It wasn't really a convention or things like that were happening here. You were helping to prepare these lunches that were then delivered out by the river or to agencies. How did those initial days feel to you? Were you learning, or did you feel fairly confident about it?
For us, it was a very short learning curve. We're used to doing very high-end food, and then we had to scale it back a little bit to accommodate budgets.
Yeah.
So very quickly we figured it out, and because all our business dried up and there was nothing going on, we were just grateful that we were continuing to work. We had a professional kitchen here, so it totally made sense for us to use the kitchen. Great facility, great staff, and a lot of support from our leadership team here. A lot of direction from the food bank and what they're looking for. So it was just a matter of a meal plan and a very short learning curve.
Yeah. And the meals from here went out with 519 Pursuit, right?
Yes.
So these meals weren't going to really nice restaurants or whatever it was. It was going down by the river to homeless encampments, to agencies. And then the pandemic ended and we had to sit down, and I know RBC Place was interested in continuing on with that as a way of helping the community, which was so awesome because that's what I was hoping for, and you did. But has much changed since the pandemic ended and now we've got into this kind of more regular thing? Does it still feel like the same thing to you?
It's gotten much easier. So it's a routine now. So it's you just do it. It's the right thing to do, so we just do it. It's a great way for us to repurpose food left over from an event.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
For the homeless, and it's a win-win for us.
Yeah. that initial year of the pandemic cost us over $1 million as a food bank just for homeless lunches. That's how much, and I'm not trying to speak of the food bank, that's how much you guys did, how many lunches you did over that period of time. It was amazing, and it kept the system together. There was one group that was putting out enough in the way of quality food supplies that it kept feeding people. I don't know what would have happened if RBC Place had not shown up. Then the pandemic ended, and then we ran into this guy who's Kent Phillips, just a great guy. You're the sous chef, but when you started here, I presume you had heard about the homeless lunches, but then you got involved with them. What was that like for you?
It was great. I had known David for a long period of time.
Oh, you have? Okay. Yeah.
When the pandemic hit, it was kind of, I reached out to people in the community, and David being one of those, and, what was everyone doing? And, he informed me that he was doing these homeless lunches and meals, and, keeping people working, doing good for the community, all these type of things, which was, great to hear and great to see, because a lot of things just stopped.
Yeah.
So, me coming on board, towards the end of the pandemic, it was great to see, the meals that were going out, and, it's not a super high-end meal, but it's a good quality meal. It's good food. And my philosophy has always been, good food is good food, whether it's $100 a plate or $2 a plate. If it's good, it's good.
What's great about this is not once have I felt any resentment from you guys, because I know people will suddenly come in with sudden requests, or suddenly I show up and try to help out with things, but it feels to me very much that you folks and Lori, who's the director here of RBC Place, whenever things came along like that, there was always a willingness within you folks to do it. But then I usually come in here once a week to see you guys because we become friends, and that's great. But you never at any point came along and said, oh, why do we have to keep doing this stuff? You were never like that. You were always really great. I wonder if you guys, because I don't think you follow the lunches and go out where they go to, but I do wonder, do you guys have a sense of the difference, what your efforts and your staff are making out there? Like, do you hear about that from the different groups that come back, or?
Yeah, we hear a lot of feedback almost on a weekly basis from the people that deliver the meals. So they get feedback, and they relay it back to us, and from what we hear, it's well received. They love them. They feel it's very high quality. So lots of feedback. They're very appreciative. They love the quiche. That seems to be one of their biggest favorites. So we try to send that up once a week. Other meals they like the hot turkey sandwiches. They love those. So we try to accommodate to or cater to what they're liking. So and we'll get feedback. If they didn't like the ham one day, then maybe we won't do that anymore. But we try to give them what they want, and try to make them happy, because what we get told is that they really look forward for that meal once a day. So it's the highlight of their day. It makes their day. It's a nice warm meal on a cold day. So they really appreciate it from the feedback we're getting.
And there'll be some days when YOU, Youth Opportunities Unlimited, will take on that role for you, because let's say it's a stat holiday or something that you're off for, and they do that. But the bulk of it is really being done by you folks. But I just think it's an amazing thing that I think everybody thought it would kind of end after the pandemic, but it didn't. And it was you guys that didn't want it to end. I didn't, but I didn't feel like I could ask you guys to do any more, but you came forward with it. And then Kent came on, and he could have said, what is this that we're having to do? But you weren't. You were so awesome. And then we all went, you and me, we went out for Christmas dinner just before Christmas, and Christmas lunch, and that was fun. But we have all of these tales that we could tell of all the different things that have been happening and all of that. But I just think it's really important for this show, for the Food Bite show, that people know that you folks were not instructed that you have to do this, and therefore you did it. You went above and beyond. I remember in that first Christmas, you had the 519 people come in here, and all of their volunteers, and you gave them a turkey dinner here, right? You didn't have to do that. That was your idea, right? I mean, I think the fact that you're that committed, I think it's wonderful that something this large, this operation, this vast, this industrial kitchen that's so great and produces so much can somehow come down to this level and help the people that are the most vulnerable in London. It's amazing that things that are that vast, and then underneath it all, below the radar that people don't see. You guys are doing this homeless meals that's going out every day to these different groups. I think it's an amazing thing, and I think Londoners need to know what you've done. The fact that it was RBC Place is what made it possible, but the fact that it was RBC Place was what allowed us to scale up. And the fact that it was RBC Place is what allowed us to continue on after the pandemic. And so I just, on behalf of the food bank, just want to thank you folks. We had a big board meeting last night where we said we're going to just keep this going for as long as RBC Place can do it. It makes a huge difference. But to this community, it's not that you're delivering or making up these meals that get delivered. These are top quality meals, things that people would not normally accept or expect. So thank you very much for all of that. And it means a lot. And Kent, you've been such a great guy in all of this and been such a supporter. I really appreciate that as well.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. You know, we have a great team of hospitality professionals.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's the leaders of our community or people that need a little extra help in our community.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to be hospitable to all of them for sure.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And in the nearly 4 years we've been doing this, I've never heard one staff member complain about doing it.
And I haven't
wanting
either.
to do it.
Yeah.
Everybody's on board. Everybody loves doing it.
Yeah, that's great. And we become great friends in that process. Thank you, guys.
We have a great friendship with Glen Pearson.
We do. That's awesome. Thanks, guys. Well, here I am down at the main foyer part of RBC Place. You've met the chefs and seen the great work that they did, but we were talking about the homeless lunches, and the germ of how all that started with this woman right here. This is Lori Silva from, she's general manager and CEO here of RBC Place. Do you remember that time? How long have you been here, first of all?
Myself, at this organization, I'm heading into my 19th year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So then the pandemic came, and you know, this place does great business, and then suddenly it wasn't, just like every other place in this city. But I remember getting a phone call from you. I think it was on a Saturday morning. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, can you just tell us how that whole homeless lunch thing first started?
certainly. So we were looking at the fact that we have a massive building, probably one of the biggest kitchens in the community, and obviously we were closed and looking for opportunities to help the community. And obviously with the homeless situation and a number of the current facilities not being able to accommodate their normal numbers during the pandemic, there was a lot more people looking for assistance. And I think, to be quite honest, I talked to Michelle Baldwin when she was at Pillar, and I said there has to be a better way than a lot of these small organizations trying to accommodate the food needs that people had. And so we were chatting, and Michelle just happened to say, you know what, I'm talking to Glen, and I think that was a Friday or Saturday morning, and she said, you know, I think the two of you should have a conversation. So it was Michelle Baldwin who actually connected us, and I think it was a Saturday morning when we chatted, and it was us saying, how can we help? We've got certified chefs de cuisine, and we've got a highly skilled, talented team and space to do things. So
an industrial kitchen, all that stuff. Yeah,
absolutely, we could do the volumes that you were needing.
Yeah, I remember for us, because we had our warehouse manager of the food bank at the house when you called, and so the three of us talked about it afterwards, and we were trying to figure out how would we respond to the homeless situation now that the pandemic was here, because we were getting calls from all sorts of people who were looking for food but no way of distributing it.
Right.
So that was a big problem. So we were talking about the distribution, but then when you came up with the idea that if we used RBC Place as the key partner for preparing the food, then that's a big part done. That's the hardest part done. The food bank could cover the costs, so that part is there. But then who does the delivery?
Yes.
Right. So back in those days, we had the group 519 Pursuit that was helping, but just average citizens were coming in, like a bikers club and everything else. And we would be down at the loading bay area, and then they would come and they would get these lunches all made by RBC Place, and then it would fan out across the city. Like, we were helping so many different agencies and groups. But this was the place. This was the engine that made it all work. It wasn't the food bank, and it wasn't out there. It was here at RBC Place. Did you sense at the time then, Lori, because I'm not sure I fully did, that just how pivotal RBC Place was becoming to that whole homeless story during that first year?
No, not at all.
No.
In fact, I think, when we started, that was probably about May when we I
Yeah.
think got officially
May 11th.
running.
May 11th. Yeah.
And I think we still were of the opinion that the pandemic was going to
Yeah.
be not so long, and that our intention was to help in that immediate need, get people over the hump
Yeah.
of the crisis, and then everything would sort of go back to the way it
Yeah.
was. And here we are 4 years later, we're still preparing lunches.
Yeah.
Now, not as many perhaps on a daily basis, but 509 Pursuit is still picking up and
Yeah.
delivering out to those who really aren't able to get to another place for a meal.
And how many lunches are we talking to in the 4 years?
We're tracking, I think, over 112,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of meals.
And what we do discover out there is that, because I go out on seeing some of the folks that get the food, and it's RBC food that they want. It's hilarious because I remember one time they got salmon, and another time they got like turkey sandwiches. I mean, it's really, you folks really know how to do it up well. But the way it basically works is you have just continued on making the meals. The food bank has continued on paying for them, and 519 has just continued on delivering them. And that's, on May 11th, it'll be 4 years anniversary that we've been doing all of that. But then, Lori, the pandemic ended. And I remember people were beginning to come back, and you were beginning to look at, will conventions come back and all of those kind of things. How's it been since the pandemic ended?
So we are certainly back up and running. In fact, 2023 was a record recovery year for us. We've generated a surplus, and so we're quite excited. Now, we're still not hosting as many events. I think we had about 184 last year, which is still great and much more than the year before, and our first full year of being open.
Yeah.
So excited about that, and our team surveys and our guest surveys are all stellar. So people are very excited to be back working, but back attending events for sure. And we're seeing some record numbers. We just recently hosted the annual Chamber of Commerce breakfast for the mayor.
I remember, yeah.
And they're pushing 1,200 in their attendance, which is probably as best as it has ever been. And so people are back, they're attending, but what we have purposely not done is gone back to accommodate some of the smaller groups that we would have previously, some of the regular networking groups. So we're really focused on accommodating those conventions, conferences, multi-day meetings, large local events, galas, that type of thing.
But you're the big group in London that can do this kind of thing, so it would have been quite natural for you, as it happened in other places across the country, to say the special things that we put in place for helping the homeless during the pandemic are now over. We've got to get back to business and putting people back to work and all that kind of stuff. But you didn't.
No, and to be quite honest, we have always been a group that if we had food left over that was appropriate, we would donate it to the Men's Mission, donate it to some of the other groups around town. And so we're continuing to work with 519 Pursuit. We're actually still able to continue to repurpose some foods that's left over. So it's a bit of a win-win for us too. We're able to provide a healthy, high-quality meal to those who need it. We're repurposing some food that might otherwise not be distributed to our guests in-house, and we're making it all work. So it does mean our team is much more organized in the kitchen, because if they've got a conference with 600 breakfast, lunch, and dinners, we're still doing 80 meals for 519 Pursuit to pick up. So we're managing it, and I think the team's become very good at organizing themselves and preparing for the week ahead.
And the friendships between us all as well. I think that's so important. Like the people who deliver the food come in and they talk to the chefs down at the loading dock. Right? You and I talk a lot more. It's a wonderful thing that has continued. But I do think, I was saying to the chefs this morning, I think your legacy has now been put in place, Lori. I do. I mean, I wouldn't have known quite what to do even if I would have thought of the idea. But it was you. You were the engineer. You were the ones with Michelle's help, and Michelle Baldwin at Pillar. She was awesome. That's really true. She was a great and a pivotal person there. But what you've done over the last 4 years, when you think about it, just what's been done for homelessness and the people that are homeless and the feeding that has happened, it's almost astronomical. For the food bank, it's been it's almost now $2 million since the pandemic started that we're doing it. So much of that has been done by your folks. But, whatever you do in your life, you always look back on this, Lori, and you put on your resume whenever you can, and use us as resume people whenever you can, because we're so thankful you're here and for what you're doing in this community even today. But man, you were pivotal to that whole homeless thing, and your legacy is burned in now. It's imprinted into this place.
112,000 meals later.
Yeah,
we have a legacy.
No, it's amazing. Thank you, Lori, and thanks for doing
You're
this.
welcome. Thank you.